Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Tech Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with this week's tech guest, but as always, we're going to give a shout out to every single one of our sponsors. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director. They're all great companies. I really recommend them to you. So take 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our Tech Tuesday guest, and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment of all of our podcasts. At my school, we use surveys for everything, for teachers, for coaches, for parents, for student athletes. And the information that came back on these surveys was almost always over the top positive. But the surveys also connected us to that squeaky wheel parent or student athlete and allowed us to hear a concern and many times take care of it before it turned into something big. But having all of that positive feedback was incredibly valuable when you're visiting with that frustrated parent, or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Hometown Ticketing. Hometown's the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And whether it's more support, more security, or more customization for your school, Hometown is going to help you make the best online ticketing solution. Go to hometownticketing.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast, hometownticketing.com. We also want to say thank you to Ohio University and their online master's in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others. And it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're completing your master's degree, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To get more information, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all their different events, or to show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen video consoles. It's also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag a little bit about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Once again, mention the podcast. We want to thank our friends at Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day. Things like scheduling, results, communication, rosters. It's just one of those platforms that you can't appreciate until you really try it. Go to homecampus.com. Their team will set you up with a demo, and their athletic eligibility and clearance package alone is worth the price of the platform. Go to hometownticketing.com for more information. That's homecampus.com. Home Campus. We also want to thank our friends at Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. You're going to be very glad you did. We want to say thanks to our friends at Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos. Our parents loved the streaming, but there's so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We want to thank our good friends at Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. And we want to thank our good friends at Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and their team will have you creating world-class social media content in seconds. Your students are on social media, so are a lot of their parents. If they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Whether it's results from a game or a newsletter about your program or so much more, Gipper has a package for you. Go to Gipper.com to get started. Remember, it's so easy, even I can do it. Gipper.com. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Tech Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. Longtime listeners know that frequently our Tech Tuesday guests include individuals from our great sponsors. And again, these are products that I have used as an athletic director. And that's what we have today. We're going to be visiting with Larry Ledgerwood. Larry's the founder, he's the CEO of Athletic Surveys. And you've heard me say before, if you've never used a survey to kind of take the pulse of, your coaches, your student athletes, your parents, everybody in your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Larry has been with the podcast almost since the very beginning. I think if he wasn't our first sponsor, he might have been our second one, but he's been with us for every segment, and we're happy to have him today. Larry Ledgerwood, welcome back to the Educational AD Podcast.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Well, regular listeners hear me sing the praises of your product every single episode, but let's pretend for a moment that we've got a new listener and they're not familiar with Athletic Surveys. Share a little bit how the program gets started, and then more importantly, how it can help an athletic director do their job better.
Well, the program got started in the early 2000s when the foundation of Life Track Services was doing senior exit surveys and graduate follow-up surveys. A customer contacted us and says, can we take the exit survey philosophy into athletics? When you're offering a contact sport like football, she said it's not a matter of if, but when somebody gets seriously hurt. She said, I want to have years and years and years of data that basically says we're providing adequate equipment, we're emphasizing safety, and gathering other data that can help benefit the programs. She said it's not going to take the lawsuit away, but it might take the negligent out of the lawsuit. That really rang right. So we did the survey for several years with their school district, and then 5 or 6 years later, they wanted to expand it. And at that point, it kind of clicked that if they're that high on this program, maybe we should be offering this nationwide. In short, every school gets to hear from the 2% of the athletes that had a less than desirable experience, or more commonly, their parents. We want to give the 95 to 98% of your athletes that are having a good or even a great experience a voice to support your coaches, support your programs, but most importantly, give you data so when the next allegation or complaint comes in, you can confidently say that's not the way it is. We surveyed our volleyball team last year or our football team last year, and 93% of the varsity team level that your son or daughter is participating on felt that the coach treated them with respect, or however they may have worded their questions.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. As a longtime AD who spent most of my career at the private school level, where, let's face it, there are some student athletes and some parents who can feel entitled. One of the favorite expressions of that parent coming in is to say, well, everybody feels this way about Coach Jones, or, everybody is saying this. And having that data from the survey is just so incredibly valuable. And it's also great to have, and I say this in the shout outs, when you're talking to your principal, might get called in and said, hey, Mrs. Smith or Mr. Jones is just wearing me out. What's going on? And you can provide that data from this season, last season, as you said, years of data, saying, well, actually, that's not how the parents feel. This is that squeaky wheel that we, hopefully can try to work with. Um, how let's say the athletic director is listening right now. They want to find out more information. They want to get involved. How hard is it from that AD's perspective to implement a survey for student athletes or for parents or for both?
Well, we try to make as simple as possible. Um, our example surveys that we share openly are created with 20 of our most commonly used questions. We have a bank of questions with, I think, over 250 questions that other schools have used that we will provide out. The first thing we do is provide that out at once we receive an order form. And within that bank of questions, the more commonly used questions are highlighted. I had an athletic director reach out to me and say, Larry, you want me to select 20 questions? You just gave me 250. Help me out a little bit. So we kind of broke it into categories and went through and highlighted the more commonly used questions. So I've also had athletic directors that have reviewed the example survey, knowing that it had 20 of our most commonly used questions, and have said, change the name at the top and let's go with this. If that's the case, and it's a good way to start the first year, you're going to get some proven data or proven questions that other athletic directors have found helpful. And then at the end of the first year, they're probably going to want to tweak some or make some adjustments. Um, but in those cases where they say that, a lot of times we can have it live from within 24 hours, if not less, when they use the example questions like that.
Wow.
Others might say, let's use the example survey, but change number 8, change number 15, and number 17 with these, and let's do it.
Now, I know you and I, we've known each other for a few years now. We always, connect at the national conference. I know you have clients in schools, across the country. We recently did an interview with the athletic director here in Florida at Berlin Jesuit. He had just completed his first year there, but prior to that, he was at Gulliver Prep. And if you're not familiar, both of those schools are, those names literally are at the top of everyone's list of great schools, great athletic programs. The athletic director, Laz Fernandez, spoke glowingly of his experience with athletic surveys. So there's a little extra shout out. The clients that you've dealt with, I know you've got hundreds of success stories. Can you just share one? You don't have to give out the name of the school or the AD, but how having that information, having that feedback, whether it was for one season or for multiple seasons, how that made a significant impact on what that athletic director was able to do with their program.
Sure. Well, obviously Laz is a great supporter and I appreciate him giving me the shout out. Um, Story that comes to mind right off the top of my head is a new customer last year in Oregon. I was at their conference last spring and the AD came up, first time I'd met him face to face. And he said, Larry, this program has already proven itself. And he'd only gotten the fall report back. I said, that's great. Why are you saying that? He said, well, most of my coaches were very receptive to it and took the data to heart and, kind of came back with some self-implemented changes that they were going to do differently. But he said I had two coaches that just couldn't comprehend it or didn't take it to heart. He said I had a great conversation with one that kind of came around and and agreed that they needed to do some things differently. The second one just never could grasp that is the way it is. And he said, ironically, I was going to probably have to make a coaching change, but they submitted their resignation and I didn't have to have that awkward discussion. So um, another one that comes to mind recently, I was in Ohio last week at the Ohio Athletic Directors Conference, then moved down to the superintendent and school boards. And an athletic director came by the booth and said, He said, we got our fall report. Everything was great. Pulled up an email that he had received from one of his coaches, and and it read, I had no idea the athletes felt that way. I'll be making some changes. So, um, that right there, he said it's worth it right there. So,
Yeah, and again, I can echo that from my experience as an AD. Um, Oftentimes, a coach they're very successful, and at the same time, there's not that connection, relationship, whatever, with the student athletes, and they're completely unaware of that. And having that survey, having that data that you can share, again, it's data, it's real. This is how people are feeling about the program. Tremendously valuable tool. Um,
yeah, perception is reality. One administrator told me.
mhm. And you mentioned this. Obviously, we're talking about athletic surveys, but your company can provide a variety of different surveys for graduating seniors, for others. Just real quick, what are some of the different surveys that you provided in addition to surveys for student athletes, surveys for parents of student athletes? What's some of the variety that they can also incorporate?
Yeah, well, we've had a few athletic directors that have done coach surveys. Um, and one specifically, every single question on the survey was about himself. So every question related back to the athletic director and how well they were doing their job. Like I mentioned earlier, the foundation of our company is graduate follow-up surveys, where we start with a senior exit survey, gather data about what the kids plan to do, as well as how they felt about their high school education as a whole. And then we follow that group of kids up through the pivotal 5 years after graduation, completing surveys at 18 months, which in my opinion is a great time to ask them, how well were you prepared in math, English, science, and history, um, regardless of what they're doing. If they're attending an Ivy League school or they're working in the trades or at a fast food restaurant, um, if you have given them the skills to be successful at their chosen path, you can feel good about you've done your job. We've also had some high school principals that have moved to the middle school level and have come to us and said, hey, I have attendance data, I have discipline data, I have test scores, but I have no idea how these kids feel about this school. Can I do a climate survey, or can I do an exit survey with all students? So we've done that. It's very flexible when you customize the questions. The last survey that we do a fair amount of are Title IX interest surveys. Here in Washington, it's required that every district do an interest survey once every 3 years. I think in Illinois, it might be every other year. So we have kind of cloned those state required surveys and trying to help streamline and take that burden away from ADs. Here in Washington, it was referred to me as the dreaded Title IX interest survey. And so we just try to make that easy for them. We have to report that by campus. So if they have um, two middle schools and a high school, we have to survey each one individually. We take it a step further and provide that data back as an overall district as well, so that the district as a whole can look at it.
Now, you mentioned that that's required in Washington. Is that through the Department of Education, or is that through the Athletic Association? Where's the
Through the
requirement?
Department of Education, the
Okay.
Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction.
Yeah. So I'm going to guess other states probably have that have a similar requirement too. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good
Well,
stuff.
Title IX is national, and it's
Yeah.
it's just one piece of Title IX. It's not a catch-all, and I'm compliant because of this, but it does meet that uh, assessment or survey to make sure if 90% of your kids want to play soccer, but you're offering football, you're technically out of compliance of Title IX if you're not offering what they want. So this kind of lets you keep your finger on that pulse.
Oh yeah, it's part of that three-pronged
Yep.
evaluation of compliance. Um, Larry, appreciate you coming on and sharing. And again, if you're a new listener or you're an old listener, you really need to go to the website, check it out, athleticsurveys.com. There's even an 800 number there. Sometimes Larry actually answers that number. But check out the platform. If people want to find out more, Again, you go ahead and give out that information. How do they find out more about athletic surveys?
Yeah, the easiest is the website, athleticsurveys.com. They can do it at their convenience. Um, I will point out the resources tab is where I take people when I'm on a conference call with them, and that will give them an example survey. That will give them the opportunity to download our brochure. There is a condensed version of our report. It only has an example report. It only has the overall season data and then a football and a volleyball segment because nobody's going to look through 300 pages of an example report. Um, we will be at the national conference, booth 612 in Austin. So obviously, that is my favorite conference of the year, and I get to see a lot of customers, and it's just fun conversations to have, putting faces to names as well. Um, we're always available by phone. If I'm not available, staff in our sales department it can answer any questions as well, or most questions, and that's 1-800-738-6466. And if someone just prefers to have an email and I attach all these documents, they can email me, Larry@athleticsurveys.com.
Again, Larry's very good about getting back to you through email or, like we said, through the website or phone. Larry, thanks for taking time. I know it's an incredibly busy time for you, but thanks for taking time to come on the podcast today. Looking forward to seeing you and listeners. I always spend some time at all of our sponsors' booths. So if you come by the Athletic Surveys booth, you might even get to see me. Not that that's a bonus, but I can tell you more about the product. Um, Thanks again, Larry. We will see you, I guess, in about a month.
Yeah, about a month in Austin. Looking forward to it.
Well, thanks for sharing. For listeners, we want to say thanks to you and remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this segment every single week, and just about every day, we try to share stories and best practices from the world of athletics. So we hope you'll join us for the next Educational AD Podcast. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jake.
Why aren't you letting me pause? Hey, always great to spend time with Larry Ledgerwood. Check it out, Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Before we go, we want to give a shout out to all of our great sponsors, Gipper, Huddle, Hometown Ticketing, Home Campus, Sideline Interactive, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, Snap Raise, the Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration, and Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time on the Educational AD Podcast.